it's really, I mean, just overwhelming to see these places now that they've been put on a site and they're finished on the inside. We're just waiting on some appliances, I guess, just the final touches, but to see them from the facility and actually land here and know what this is going to do for a family in need, it's really just so exciting, for lack of a better word, to really see it all come together.
Yeah, I think what's exciting about R3 is they're really neat places that will be occupied with love, but it's the product's really the people that are building them.
Yeah.
You know, on one hand they're inmates, on another hand they're students, and to be able to give them something that in both cases they're missing, which is hope.
Right.
They don't have hope.
Right.
And so not only will the people living here have hope, but with the I want to call it the mix-up, with a mixture of R3, they're delivering hope to the people that build them. And then that's, you know, you don't have the capacity to crank out thousands of these, but as they continue to build their own internal capacity, you know, they'll use these more and more. It's a fabulous idea.
It really is, and to see it being executed is really just, I mean, it makes my heart so happy to know that, you know, there's people in need, or even the students that we were talking with earlier today, that, you know, they were at risk. They, you know, were in family situations where they couldn't really see how they could further their education or where they saw their lives going, and to have someone really believe in them and give them the facility and the capabilities, and to say, I believe in you, right? Like sometimes it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, and when you look at Rancho Cielo in total, I mean, it's got a culinary school, it's got construction, it's got agriculture. It's an amazing place for young men and women that just aren't fitting into our standard high schools.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Right. They can't learn in a typical, but what's typical anymore? Anyway, we're learning more and more that.
Well, up till 2 years ago, that's very true. But the neat thing with Rancho Cielo is they've been able to continue, you know, on a face-to-face, on learning, on hands-on, and being able to leave with not only a high school education, but a lot of times a real ability. Right then, as high school graduates of a trade, but even go further to college, to a junior college, enhance that trade, to go to a university, enhance that into a degree, and the places that they can go. It's really key. It's
so good. Yeah. I just love it. Okay, so can you explain to me again, just so I'm clear on how you came into this R3 world, or just what your goal or what your vision is and your own capabilities? And I know that we were talking about the facilities and the companies that you're working with that are also doing tiny homes. If you can tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why are you interested in homelessness?
It's a growing problem. It's something that is in front of my face every day living in California, and it's something that I've heard my children, you know, their concerns as they're growing up, and it's not going away, and the problem is getting worse. And I feel that as a community and a society, if we don't step in and at least address it in some way, I don't know what the solution is. I think that that's why I'm drawn to these conversations, because really just whatever part I can play to spread awareness about it, or put a spotlight on it in some way, or lend a hand, or pick a paint color, whatever my capabilities might be. And the fragility of just existing, especially in California, it's so expensive. I think, you know, the statistics are staggering, or how, you know, the families that are one paycheck away from actually experiencing being unhoused or homelessness. It's a real thing, and it's scary. And I think that the shame and the stigma that comes along with that, I would like for those walls to come down and really just humanize the entire problem. It's just, we're all in this together. There has to be a solution. We have really smart, capable people, you know, that can come together and really come up with a real solid solution.
Yeah. Let me ask another question, because heard you last night at dinner talk about your children. Do you feel that their hope is threatened by what they're experiencing?
I do feel that their hope is threatened by what they're experiencing. I think that that's just become, I think that as it becomes more and more normal, I think that that's the threat, and that they see that these adults that are in charge and trying to, I feel that their hopelessness comes from there's no solution, there's no answer for when they say, how can we help? I mean, my 14-year-old, I think he was maybe 7 years old when he said, why can't we just build them tiny houses? I'm driving him to, elementary school.
Not a new thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's out of the mouths of babes, right?
Sure,
like,
sure.
How would you solve this? It's almost like we need a forum of just kids, right? Like, take
yeah.
all the adults out. How would you help? And they would say, well, we can give them a house. We can help give them food. We can grow food.
Right.
We can. They just need help.
Right.
Right. So it's just simplifying what the problem is in a way that everyone can wrap their head around it. Because, as you know, politically, there's so much red tape. Everyone, it's just shuffling funds one way or the other. And I think that so many ideas in this whirlwind of capabilities or solutions, it just gets lost and it falls flat, and then nothing ever happens. It's like, let's have a meeting about a meeting, right? And then you're just talking in circles, and then years pass, and the problem is just intensifying and becoming so much more extreme. So to answer your question, yes, I think it's something that it has clearly their entire lives they've been exposed to, and it's only getting worse. And I think that yes, that they're concerned.
Do you think providing a small home, a micro home, a tiny home is a solution on its own?
Definitely not a solution on its own, but I think that it's a step in the right direction. And if, obviously the employment opportunities, if the addiction issues need to be addressed. A lot of these families have little kids. It's the educational aspect. It's the helping, just as simple as what we were just talking about, giving them hope and what they need to survive and therefore succeed as a member of their community, and being able to ask for help without shame. I think that a lot of these conversations they're not fun and they're yucky, and I think that driving past it, and I think it's easy for someone to put some sort of judgment on what that person's life is, and they have no idea. They didn't walk in their shoes, they're not walking in their shoes, they don't know how they got there, or if they have always been homeless, they grew up homeless. So I think that it takes, you have to hit it from all angles. I mean, what are some of your ideas? Enlighten me, because I don't even know where to begin, I guess, is why I'm...
Yeah, I've been with R3 when it was born.
Yeah.
It was an empty nonprofit that was given to us under a different ministry called Marketplace Meets Mission. And they eventually morphed into, one was more of a prayer and a gathering of the faith community, and R3 began to be an entity to help nonprofits in areas that they were lacking. Maybe it's legal, maybe it's marketing, maybe it's accounting, maybe it's not even having a place to meet, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then it began, everybody began to kind of look toward how do we deal with homeless. Even when the two groups became truly independent, we'd already been feeding homeless for about 10 years. And so we're deeply engaged over that. We thought we knew a lot of things at that point, but this is before 2007 hit, and the numbers just began to skyrocket. But what R3 was doing was always this commitment to the micro home, to the tiny home. And so I had been around the structure side of it only because of my sons, two of my sons. My youngest was involved with a major structure manufacturer, and He would build churches, he would build aircraft hangars, he'd build manufacturing plants, he'd build native gaming casinos, but he built homeless campuses. And so he had kind of an aha moment through a rescue mission, through a particular banquet, and listening to all of the testimonies of those that graduated. And I got the phone call, and he goes, "Dad, I get it. I get what you do." And that epiphany of empathy was what allowed his next older brother to come into it. So his next older brother ends up working for the company that creates the structures, and we eventually create RPM, which is just rapid program management, and therefore we've been building campuses and we've been housing thousands. So there's two ways of looking at the tiny home side, and that's why I asked you, is giving someone just a house, a sleeping shelter, the answer, and none of us believe that's correct. Eric's been involved probably 15, 20 years within, running the largest homeless society in Monterey County and San Benito County. But we have to be outcome-based. We're all convinced we have to be outcome-based. We're convinced as RPM that it needs to be within congregate living. Because if you can't get people to live together in a loving, disciplined, managed way with a process to get them out to become successful in society or to move to a next step, which we call transitional housing with wraparound services, then we're not doing them any good. R3 is the same way. They use the small homes around a community that will do the same sort of. So we're addressing it two different ways. One's using micro homes, tiny homes. We're using congregate, and then we'll move to a tiny home solution. We'll move to a stack container or an apartment complex or a motel thing. It's just whatever that container of humans looks like. It has to have an outcome base. If we hear a lot about, hey, we have an on-site, supervisor. Well, yeah, but that's not the kind of behavioral health, physical health, mental health, veteran health, single women with children, single women, single men, full families that just can't make it.
Yeah.
Biggest problem that we've had in Monterey County are single women with children that have jobs and live in cars because they can't afford housing.
So expensive.
Yeah, so it's not just homeless in the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act definition, but it's people that are gainfully employed, but they don't even have the wherewithal to not only get the first and the last and the deposit to get into an apartment. A lot of times they can't make the monthly.
Sure.
So can villages like this morph into a partnership with government and with the nonprofit world and such? That's a big desire of ours, so that we can get people. I mean, look at the low-hanging fruit that could be taken off the streets in the state of California straight away, within a year. You've got 160 to 200,000 homeless in the state of California, over 60,000 homeless in the county and city of LA. But within that, what percent? Is it 25? Is it 50%? Is it 60? Is it 70? Whatever that percent is, we can get folks right off the street immediately if they just had some housing relief. The problem is we need a paradigm shift, because currently to do and I heard another number today that it just knocked me over. Currently, to do a studio apartment in a low-cost, affordable housing, multi-story structure in Southern California is $800,000. That's affordable.
Just construction cost,
That's turnkey to be able to open the door and go in there.
It's insane.
San Francisco, we just heard it's $1 million. So we need a paradigm shift.
Yes.
We've got to bring costing down so it's in the $100,000 range to be able to get people to do this. And so we need to look at this kind of like a Model T. Henry Ford built 13 million of these things for $495, and the people that built them could buy one. No other automobile worker could buy the vehicles they were making back in those days. We need to have a paradigm shift of a similar nature where people can begin to look at these neat little places and think, okay, I'm getting some rent relief to get in here, but what would it look like to own it?
Mm-hmm.
Part of our, series of pithy statements is, we've been taught, you give a person a fish so they can eat.
Yeah.
Teach a person how to fish so they can maybe feed their family. Well, we've been taught, let's sell them the pond. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like?
Right.
What does that look like in capitalistic or in entrepreneurial involvement to be able to help somebody really be self-sufficient?
Mm-hmm.
And can we begin to look at places like this where we've got 2 and 4 bedroom homes, and we've got 4 bedroom ADA units, and how can we expand that into villages? Does it become the old-fashioned corporate town? Here in the Salinas Valley, we've got a wonderful example in Spreckles, California. It's called Spreckles because across the street was the Spreckles sugar beet production company.
Oh.
So they had a little village across the highway of these quaint little 1890 and 1905 cottages and homes. So can we maybe think that way? Is there another way? Now that works great if you're in a kind of a rural area, and what a great view. Wouldn't you love to live here and look at the amazing view we have? But in an urban area, what would that look like?
Right.
Can we do things like vertical farming? Can we do things of various trade trainings? And whether it's R3's vision of how they produce an edifice or RPM's view of how we produce an edifice, because of COVID and because of the realization how modern workers can operate, can we repurpose commercial? Is there a way where people are willing to say, listen, we have got a humanitarian catastrophe on our hands. We've got guys dying in the street. Well, they deserve it. They're drug addicts, for goodness sake. They just got psoriasis of the liver. They don't deserve to live. We've got to get away from that and begin to care for people and to dig into what caused the angst in their heart to live this way. So do we have places, do we have people, do we have governments where instead of just providing money for what looks like a structure, do we have ways of being able to engage the marketplace and create a way of establishing, number one, hope. We talked about hope, a shelter, food, training, life, and can office buildings be repurposed not only into apartments, but a lot of the modern offices in, say, San Francisco or LA, what do they all have? They all have big cafeterias to feed the people in the building, right? So you've got all the structure in the building, but do we have the people that have to keep taking their 6, 7, and 8 figure takeaways? Or can we never, we don't have to worry about attacking the Ferrari model of development, but can we get over here to the Model T and get we'll use 160,000, out of the 160,000, can we get 120,000 back into society, back being productive, back, giving and living within life and having purpose and having hope.
Yeah. Well, can we?
Oh, I absolutely believe so. I believe that if we had the political will in the state of California, I could probably take 75% of the people off the street in 2 years.
Wow.
Well, I said that 2 years ago in the governor's office.
Right.
Well, actually, it was 4 years ago when the first round of HEAP funding came out. So how's that working? It's not working real good yet. So there has to be a paradigm. There really has to be, and we're not talking a pair of dimes, 20 cents. There really has to be a major shift in how we're dealing with this. And there really has coming together. We all know about that XY axis, personality test that we all take.
Sure.
So if you take your 4 quadrants and you write in city in one quadrant, county in another quadrant, service provider in another quadrant, and faith community in the fourth, if you don't have those 4 activists, you will never be successful. You've got to have them. There has to be a cross-pollinating partnership with all of those. Does every service provider have to be of a faith? No, not at all. We're not asking for that. They're service providing. They love people. They want to care for people. But it's the faith community is where a lot of the bodies that are of care are. But they can't be led until they see models. Oh, I'd be happy to go serve there. I'd be happy to go do this. We'd be happy to do that. And so what's neat about R3 right now is R3 is actually talking to a number of congregations in our region that have extra land, that are a little more rural in their setting, and they've got 2 acres, they got 4 acres, they got 5 acres, they got 8 acres.
But it's land, and it's an opportunity.
But it's land, and then they're looking to put, micro homes on those for people that can't afford it. Schools are looking at putting micro homes. University in our area is looking at putting micro homes because students are going to universities, Cal State universities, and they're homeless. They're going to high school and they're homeless. They're going to, the lower classes. And we're not necessarily talking about some of the definitions of McKinney-Vento. We're talking about serious homelessness.
Yeah.
And so how do we then bring all that together? So we just, for us, for RPM and for R3, we just keep putting our foot one in front of the other, and you go where you're invited and you stay where you're appreciated, and so we don't win every job, and R3 doesn't win every job, and so you just move along to the next one. And it's been quite a ride.
So if you could share with me just a moment of not patting yourself on the back, but where you actually could sit back and reflect and say, we did it, right? Like where there's a moment where a moment of hope or a success story that you could share with me.
Well, I think part of it is being built on the fact that one son has spent a decade at this, and the other son has spent, I think he's in his 5th year at this. So there's a lot of buildings that have been created. But there's an interesting story up in San Francisco. I honestly don't even know, and I ought to because it's on our website. I don't know what the real name of it is, like San Francisco Cares Facility, but it is. So what's really interesting is one of our sons built this homeless, unsheltered campus in San Francisco, of which there's a few, and we've built another one up there. This one's called Seawall. And what's interesting about it is on the Embarcadero, right across the street from the bay, probably about 400 yards from the Bay Bridge, nestled amongst multi-million-dollar condominiums.
Sure.
And what happened was when this was proposed by the city of San Francisco, all the landowners, a large portion of landowners, sued to stop it. And they lost. So it was moving forward. And as it was being built, there was still a lot of angst and a lot of that. But what ultimately happened, and this is where I think it works really well, the service provider and the guests of Seawall gave every resident in the neighborhood a phone number that would be monitored 24/7. So if there was anything untoward, whether it was around Seawall or down the various streets, loitering, camping, garbage, anything, needles, all they had to do was call that number, and the management and the service provider and the guests would immediately go deal with it without ever having to call the police. First Christmas, residents brought presents.
It's so awesome.
Then they brought clothes. Then they began to bring food. Then they began to donate money. And you're talking a plot of land in the city of San Francisco that the lot is, I don't know, maybe it's worth $5 million, maybe it's worth more. It's crazy good.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful, beautiful campus with these large, what we call tension fabric buildings. It has all the amenities, showers, bath, laundry, animals, storage. It's a secure facility. This is not what we call low barrier. This is for people that are in a process, that are in a program we're designing right now. And so that's one that's been up and running, and we have probably 10 or 12 examples of those on the West Coast. But we've designed, my youngest son, David, has designed a 16-acre campus up in Roseville for Placer County that will have everything from what we call a low barrier shelter. That's in regards to Martin v. Boise, where you can't take anybody off public property unless you can provide a proper bed. And so it has a 200-bed low shelter barrier. It has a full navigation center. It has transitional housing, all in a gated community. The land's secured, money's being raised, has an additional 6 acres that we hope to put permanent housing on. And these are the kind of models that we need to see.
Right.
You know,
because now you can prove that there is success and integration in community.
There's a lot of proof. We've had various high-level elected officials. Oh, I love that. Yeah, we're totally in favor of that. Yep, we're totally in favor. And yet we don't see the speed to occupancy that we need. But by just trudging and doing it and creating models like this out of hope, whether it houses 54 people or whether it houses 1,000 people, whatever that might look like, we have got to just keep chipping away at the issue. And so we take it from a congregate position first and then start moving downstream into housing, where R3 takes, you know, the housing position still within wraparound services. And so we're utilizing, really the key is whether you call it a navigation center, and we use the San Francisco definition of that, or whether you use wraparound services, that's the key. Anything that has to do with homelessness to get the unhoused into life has got to have wraparound services. And it cannot be flung all about. You can't have to take 5 buses to get all your services. They've got to be really close. If they're not on site, they got to be right next door.
And so can you just give me the definition of a navigation center? Does that differentiate from what we would think of as, so it's just a one-stop? It's one-stop shopping in essence. Our definition of a navigation center was created by a committee under then Mayor Gavin Newsom. My youngest son happened to be part of that. And what it is you would have a facility, it would have reception, it would have intake, it would have counseling, it would have dental, it would have medical, it would have admin, it would have a large day room that would duplicate as an eating area. It would have a kitchen, and the kitchens can be as simple as a warming kitchen to a full-on kitchen. You'd have storage for all your food. You'd have storage for the guests. You would have, then we use congregate bathroom, showers, laundry. You would have dog runs. You would have center courtyard day use areas. You'd have, of course, all the training and things that you need to help the people move along. Yeah.
To a lot of folks that come off the street that are highly addicted, it could be for the first several weeks to a month. Most of the time they're sleeping.
Yeah.
And that's good. It just gives them a respite to be able to gather themselves up, and then they begin to move through the process. Usually that kind of a model with dormitories, whether they're congregate or with micro homes, as long as they're centered, exclusively around a nav center, you end up having a success rate of about 80%. 85%, and then your recidivism rate's only about 3 to 5% is your recidivism rate. So it's proven. It's as long as you've got, whether you call it wraparound or whether you call it nav or whether you call it, behavioral health or whatever you may call it. It just has to be contained in instant access to the guests.
Sure. Because
if they've got to start moving around, and they're going to start seeing what's available, and oh, wow, Fred just gave me a dime. Let's go around the corner, and you can't do that.
It's a sports center.
Yeah, that's a very good word.
Well, but I like the nav center, right? It's like over here, over here, over here, over here.
And it's used in a lot of arenas.
Sure.
The idea of a navigation center, but that's our definition of one.
You must be so proud of your sons.
Oh, it's so fun. It really, it's an e-ticket ride.
Yeah.
It's totally an e-ticket ride.
I mean, that is so great. Well, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. It's been so much fun spending time with you, and I'm really excited just to be a part of it. And
well, we are too.
Now I have your number.
Well, good.
Now you can't get rid of me.
Now we can build hope for others.